Welcome. In this podcast, we take a look at cloud computing. What is it and how businesses are using it? So, what is cloud computing? Well, with cloud computing, users are not required to have knowledge or ownership of the physical location and design of the system that delivers and stores software and data. It's a new consumption, supplement, and delivery model for services across the internet. Kind of a basic way of looking at what cloud computing is, or kind of a basic definition, is you are creating, editing, and storing information or documents, but you're not actually doing so on servers of your own. You're doing it in the clouds. So this is a fairly new term in the business world, though it has been around for some time. When you think about it, a basic way of how people use cloud computing, you probably have used it before, you just didn't know how it's defined now. But basically, if you have done like a paper for a class, even going back 10 years ago, if you had a class and you did a paper, and let's say that you stored it on your USB, or back then your floppy drive, your floppy disk, and you said, well, I don't really trust the floppy disk, it could mess up, something might happen to it, and just as a backup, I'm going to go ahead and email myself the paper, just as a backup, just to be safe. Well, that's a form of cloud computing. You are storing something that's not necessarily something that you physically have. It's something that you're storing, as we say, in the clouds. So it's been around for a long time, but it's kind of a fairly new concept or fairly new term in the business world, and that's kind of what it means. Now, what are some of the user benefits? Well, for one, users can maintain documents, files, and content on a provider's system without using their own storage and space. They can add, delete, edit, copy, share, whatever information as if it were actually loaded on their own computers. But again, it's in the clouds. And then, of course, it's also very convenient. It provides on-demand access to resources. So it doesn't take, like I said, it doesn't take up any storage space of your own. It's just kind of in the cloud. So on that level, it's very, very convenient for users. Now, what are some of the provider benefits? Well, for one, the system does not require a lot of customer service. The company is just putting the information out, or how to access the documents in the clouds. They don't actually have to monitor customer service or things like that. Also, extensive systems management and support are typically not needed. A lot of companies are sort of using other sources for cloud computing. Just as an example, Google Docs. That's a form of cloud computing. Anybody can go on there, any business or any individual can go on there and set up a document. You can set up the settings to where you can control who has the ability to get on your document, and then also if you want them to have the capability to edit, you can do that. So typically support is not necessarily needed. Also, large pools of consumers can access the system, providing access to multiple revenue streams with less overhead than a traditional distribution delivery method. So lots of people have access to that. And as mentioned, with a lot of these cloud computing sites or resources, you have the ability to control who has access and who can edit certain documents. So that's those are some of the provider benefits. So uses for cloud computing? Well, for one, distribution and the ability to connect with customers. You can set up some of these cloud computing sites to where obviously you will have the ability to go back and forth to connect with your customers, to have them be able to contribute information, and you could even set up distribution methods. Whatever your product might be, it might be something that you can do electronically. You can actually set up use a cloud computing site for distribution channel right there. So that's one thing. Also, the ability for employees to work with one another without physically being in the same place. This provides kind of a team component. You can kind of work within what we call the global village, which is basically the ability to work with people and connect not only with your customers, but work with your employees and team members, perhaps, halfway across the world without actually physically knowing them or actually physically ever meeting them. So it's a very good way for employees or team members, whatever it might be, for whether you're talking about a business, a partnership, whatever, a capability for people to work with one another without physically being in the same place. So those are some of the uses for cloud computing.